Hello, it is early March 2021 and I am about to embark on an attempt of the Foothills Trail through hike, stretching about 77 miles through South Carolina and North Carolina. Foothills is a beautiful trek with a plethora of waterfalls along the way. Now, I did forget both my trekking poles and my camp shoes on this trip, so I have to make the best of that. The other challenges that I'm going to face are the length of the trip and the weather. The temperatures are going to range from the 20s to the 70s, so a big range there. But I'm excited to get going, and it's time to hit the trail. I'm about 3 miles in on the day, and I haven't had a single sip of water yet. I thought there'd be water at Oconee to fill up my bottles, and I didn't see any. So this is the first stream that I've come to. It's a small one, but hopefully I can get a couple sips here. I just received a huge blessing on trail. I had stopped to gather water about an hour ago, and unfortunately my filter was completely clogged. Tried to back flush it, nothing doing. Not a good situation to be in, starting a 7-day trip with no way to treat water. Maybe 30 minutes after I left that water source and continued hiking along, I came up to a road and met a group of 4 backpackers from the Black Folks Camp 2 organization, and one of them took the water filter out of his pack and gave it to me. Wouldn't accept a phone number exchange or anything like that for me to pay him back at a future point. Out of the kindness of his heart, he just gave me this water filter so that I could have safe water for the next week. They also gave me a unity patch, and the message here is to treat everyone with equality. The backpacking community is always looking out for each other, regardless of what they may look like. And I really appreciate the Black Folks Camp 2 for giving me this unity patch and this filter. If you have social media, make sure to go follow the Black Folks Camp 2 pages. They really saved me on this trip, and the least that we can do to thank them is to give them the support. Thank you, Black Folks Camp 2. $70.2 miles to go. Pigpen Falls. Now this is a waterfall, Lick Log Falls. Home sweet home. This is exactly what I was hoping for tonight. A beautiful campsite, a stone's throw from the wild and scenic Chattooga River. The sun's just set over the ridge. Time to get set up. Known as the crown jewel of the Southeast, the Chattooga River was the first river east of the Mississippi to be designated as wild and scenic, and remains the only wild and scenic river in Georgia and South Carolina. On this trip, I'm using the Foothills Trail Pocket Profile by Anti-Gravity Gear. Let's take a look at the map for day 1. I started at Oconee State Park, hiked along until I met the Black Folks Camp 2 group, where they gave me the water filter, continued to the spur trail for Pigpen and Licklog Falls, and hiked along the Foothills Trail until I set up for camp along the Chattooga River. Including the short spur, day 1 was about 11 miles. Day 1 of my trip along the Foothills Trail has been a great day. Started off challenging with my gear issues, forgetting my trekking poles, forgetting my camp shoes, having the filter problem. I'm gonna regret those first 2 more and more as the trip goes along, but another big thank you to the Black Folks Camp 2 group who gave me their filter. Really appreciate it, y'all. I met a couple other cool people today. Taz, anyone familiar with the Foothills Trail knows Taz. He gave me a shuttle this morning. I met Randy and Ryan, who are backpacking, and we're actually taking Taz the other way. Maybe about 45 minutes left of decent daylight out here, so I'm gonna get some water gathered, eat dinner, and then get ready for bed. It's gonna be an early night for me, and that'll be the end of day 1. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 2 of my backpacking adventure along the Foothills Trail. Had a solid night last night. Beautiful stars twinkling, spread all across the sky. One of the best star nights that I've had in quite some time. Funnily enough, it didn't drop below freezing until after I was up in the morning. When I first got up, none of my water was frozen, but now by the time breaking camp, it's quite slushy in some of my bottles. Today, I'm going to continue along the Foothills Trail, and I've got several nice waterfalls on the docket, so I'm excited to get going, and it's time to hit the trail. The wild and scenic Chattooga River. It won't be much longer until I leave the Chattooga River behind. It's been a pleasant companion for the first part of my trip. King Creek Falls is spectacular. Holy moly, look at that waterfall. It is a beautiful day today. "55 miles to go." I'll round down. I'm glad they have this blue blaze here. I would not have recognized this as a water source without it. A small waterfall right off the Foothills Trail. Oh, not so small after all, is it? Home sweet home. This is the East Fork campsite. Nice spot here. Just what the doctor ordered for my tired feet. Sun is setting behind the ridge, so I'm going to go ahead and get set up. The concept behind the 77-mile Foothills Trail linking Oconee and Table Rock State Parks began in the 1960s, and the footpath was in place by 1981. Backpacker magazine named the Foothills Trail one of the best long trails in the country. Let's take a look at the map for day 2. I started at my campsite along the Chattooga River, hiked the Foothills Trail past the Burrell's Ford area, took the spur trail to King Creek Falls, continued along the Foothills Trail, big climb through here, until I set up camp at the East Fork campsite, mile marker 23.6. Including the spur to King Creek Falls, day 2 was about 13 miles. Day 2 of my backpacking trip along the Foothills Trail has been a great day. It's planned to be my longest mileage day of the trip, so hopefully it's all downhill from here. The highlight was without a doubt King Creek Falls. I hadn't looked into any of the waterfalls. I wanted to be surprised by them, and boy, was I surprised by King Creek Falls. I didn't expect to see anything of that size until I got down to Whitewater. I do want to come clean. I labeled day 1 a great day, and it was great to get started on my trip, but it was a bit of a rough day at times. I was frustrated with myself for forgetting my trekking poles, forgetting my camp shoes, not checking my water filter before I came out. I ended up not taking in much water throughout the day, got dehydrated, wasn't eating much food because of that. Today, I feel a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and finish getting camp set up, get some dinner in me, get warm clothes on because the temperature is dropping drastically, and that'll be the end of day 2. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 3 of my backpacking trip along the Foothills Trail. Had another good night last night. Once again, the skies were clear, no sign of the moon, beautiful stars splashed all the way across the sky. It actually got chillier last night than the night before. It was supposed to be warmer, but I was about 1,000 feet higher, so it ended up getting down to around 30, freezing once again. I believe that this should be my last freezing night of the trip. It's all warmer from here. My plan today is to cover about 10 to 11 miles, and it's going to take me by Whitewater Falls, which is really one of the most spectacular highlights of the entire trail, and I'm looking forward. I've never been to Whitewater Falls before, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. I found one little tiny spot of sunshine coming down through the trees. I'm gonna get camp packed up, and then it'll be time to hit the trail. Please be smarter than me. The first rule of setting up in the woods is to look up, make sure there's no deadfall above you. Honestly, there's not many hang spots at the East Fork campsite. I'd recommend staying somewhere else if you're in a hammock. It appears that the trail served as a fire break at some point in the past. Out there to the right, we got burned ground. Out there to the left, no sign of burn. I do believe that I recently crossed into North Carolina. Feels good to be home, even if it's just for a couple miles here. In the foreground is Bad Creek Reservoir, and in the background is Lake Jocassee. I'll get a better look at Jocassee later on in the trip. Whitewater Falls. Awesome. Huge waterfall. Quite a few steps. I hope I don't have to come back up. That is a waterfall and a half right there. Stunning. The Whitewater River. I'm not quite sure how it got the name. I'm going to eat a late lunch here on the banks and then try to make some good time over the second half of my day. Always vigilant. Keep an eye out for widowmakers. Home sweet home. Just across the bridge over the Thompson River is my campsite for the night. Time to get set up. My puppies are barking. Woo! North Carolina's Upper Whitewater Falls is the highest waterfall east of the Rockies, with a towering 411-foot plunge. These falls sit on the Blue Ridge Escarpment, the sharp transition zone between the mountains and the Piedmont. Let's take a look at the map for day 3. I started my campsite at the East Fork, followed the Foothills Trail into North Carolina. This is an area where you're going to want to be careful, assuming that you want to see Whitewater Falls, which of course you do. You're going to want to get off the Foothills Trail for a short portion, follow the road down to the Whitewater Falls viewing area, and then there'll be signs to take you back to the Foothills Trail. After that, I continued along the Foothills Trail back into South Carolina and then back into North Carolina before setting up camp on the Thompson River at mile marker 34.4. Including the spur to the Whitewater Falls, day 3 was about 11 miles. Day 3 of my backpacking trip along the Foothills Trail has been, wait for it, a great day. The highlights of my hike today were certainly Whitewater Falls and the Whitewater River. And a particular highlight for me was it was a little bit shorter than yesterday. This is the warmest evening of my trip so far, thanks to the cloud cover that rolled in mid-afternoon. So I'm hoping for a night above freezing tonight. Beautiful campsite here along the Thompson River. I'm gonna get some dinner cooked up and settle in for a relaxing evening. That'll be the end of day 3. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 4 of my trip along the Foothills Trail. Another solid night last night. I actually realized I spent the night in North Carolina. The clouds cleared out right as the sun was fading, led to another star night. I'm not sure where the moon's been at the past couple of days, but it has not been disrupting the view of the stars. Warmest night of the trip. Felt a little cooler than the thermometer said, but apparently it was around 40 last night. Today, I've got in the 10 to 11 mile range, at least one good waterfall. I'm gonna finish breakfast up, get camp packed, and it'll be time to hit the trail. The first stretch of the Foothills Trail heading away from the Thompson River is straight up. Pay the troll toll. There's a little action here below Hilliard Falls. That's a pretty waterfall in its own right, but there is more to come. Hilliard Falls. Another beaut. Well, I don't think I've ever seen so much prepared wood in the backcountry. That being said, it's almost useless for campers with these big logs not being split. Now this is really cool. I didn't know they'd have a sign here. This is the exact halfway point of my trek. 38 miles down, 38 miles to go. This is the Horsepasture River, and not the prettiest name for a river. Sounds kind of gross actually, but it is a beautiful waterway. I'm going to eat lunch on the banks, and then after lunch I have those stairs to look forward to. There's a boat down there on the river. My first visit to Gorges State Park. It's like a jungle through this section. Thick greenery everywhere the eye looks. I'm a bit perturbed at the moment because the map I'm using had 2 campsites listed over the past 2.5 miles or so that apparently did not exist. So I may end up having to go as far as 5 extra miles today. It will make the rest of the trip shorter, but wasn't what I was planning. Hopefully I can find a good spot before too long. Home sweet home. Made to camp here a stone's throw from the Toxaway River. It is a beautiful sight here, much farther than I expected going on the day. The sun is set. I need to get put up. Let's take a look at the map for day 4. I started at my campsite on the Thompson River. Followed the Foothills Trail until it connects with the Hilliard Falls spur. Took the spur back to the Foothills Trail. Continued on the FHT. I thought I was going to be able to set up camp at 44.6, but there was no campsite to be found. So I continued on to approximately mile marker 48, where I set up along the Toxaway River. Including the spur, day 4 was about 14 miles. Day 4. All's well that ends well, so I'll call this another great day, but it certainly had its ups and downs. Beautiful hiking throughout. I enjoyed the ridgeline views, Hilliard Falls, the Horsepasture River, and I've got a beautiful sight here on the Toxaway River. Of course, I was annoyed by the inaccuracies on the map, but it'll make the following days of the trip a little easier. Just had to work a little harder today. Tonight should be my warmest night so far of the trip, and I've got camp halfway set up. I'm gonna get some dinner in me, and stop me if you've heard this before, but it's gonna be an early bedtime because I'm a tired fella. Good night. Lake Jocassee was created in 1983 by flooding a developed mountain valley and is fed by the Toxaway, Thompson, Horsepasture, and Whitewater rivers. A local cemetery used as a scene in the movie Deliverance is now below 130 feet of water. Good morning. Made it to day 5? Who's counting? Another good night last night. My warmest night of the trip so far. It stayed in the mid to upper 40s. Sun has just risen over the far ridge on the other side of the Toxaway River, bathing me in its illuminating rays. Today is expected to be my second toughest day of hiking. If it turns out to be my toughest day of hiking, something went terribly wrong because it should not be as long as yesterday. I'm going to have at least one good waterfall today. I'll cross the Toxaway River here before too long, so it should be a great day of hiking. I'm going to finish up breakfast, get camp packed up, and it'll be time to hit the trail. There are fish feeding out there, causing a bit of a ruckus in the water. I'm crossing the Toxaway River on this pretty sweet bridge here. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. I would also encourage you, if you have the ability to do so, go support the Black Folks Camp 2 group by liking or following them on social media. They really helped me out by giving me the filter out of the generosity of their hearts. 27 miles to go. It appears that I'm at the beginning of Heartbreak Ridge. There are almost 600 stair steps over the next little bit of trail. Oof. Very serene on this calm day. Leaving Gorges State Park, I'll be in South Carolina for the remainder of my trip. This stretch is just as bad as Heartbreak Ridge. I'm heading uphill. I just came down that trail, and apparently that was the wrong way because the Foothills Trail is there. So I was very fortunate that this logging road brought me right back here to the Foothills Trail. Laurel Fork Falls. This overlook is going to be my lunch spot for the day. I've never been on so many bridges of varying sizes, shapes, and designs. It's like they dropped 100 engineers along the Foothills Trail and said, each of you go make a new bridge. There's a detour sign here due to the bridge being damaged and impassable down the trail, but I've been told that it's an easy rock hop during reasonable water levels, and so I'm going to go for it. Virginia Hawkins Falls, a scenic multi-tiered waterfall. Looks like Heartbreak Ridge Part 2. This is the downed bridge above Virginia Hawkins Falls, and as we can see, it's a super easy crossing when the water levels aren't up. Just 30 minutes ago, I was down on the valley floor. Now I'm up on top of the ridge. Beautiful view, tough hiking. Home sweet home. Looks like I have a ridgeline camp tonight, a bit different from the past several nights. Met a pair of nice fellows named Daryl and Brandon about a mile down the trail who gave me some great info to help me out on the rest of the trip. Thanks, Daryl. Laurel Fork Creek, which runs through the Laurel Fork Heritage Preserve Wildlife Management Area, was returned to its natural state via a cooperative restoration project that fixed 80 years of stream manipulation. Let's take a look at the map for day 5. I started at my campsite along the Toxaway River, hiked Heartbreak Ridge, and then ascended after Gorges State Park, both tough climbs. Continue along to the Laurel Fork Falls and Virginia Falls. Beautiful creekside hiking through here, and now I'm set up camp for the night at mile marker 59.9. Day 5 was about 12 miles. Good evening. Day 5 of my trip along the Foothills Trail has been another great day. Probably my favorite day of hiking of the entire trip. I'm a deep woods, creekside kind of guy, and the whole second half of the day was beautiful hiking along the Laurel Fork Creek Valley. I think it may be difficult for someone who hasn't experienced it to understand just how content one can be with little more than a shelter, some food, and warm clothes. I can't think of any item that would make me happier than I am on this trip. Well, maybe camp shoes. But that's one of the many things I love about backpacking. It's a simple life. You really don't need much to get by. I'm gonna get dinner cooked up in this little alcove, sheltered from the wind, and that'll be the end of day 5. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 6, the penultimate day of my adventure along the Foothills Trail. I feel like I blinked and now I've only got one night left. Time flies when you're having fun. Hike today should be a good one. I don't know if I have any waterfalls today, but in lieu of falls, I am going to climb the tallest mountain in South Carolina, Sassafras Mountain. Now, I won't mention the elevation, it's a bit embarrassing, but the Palmetto State is trying their best. I enjoyed my ridgeline campsite last night. Variety is the spice of life, so it was fun to have a little different scenery and beautiful sunset, beautiful sunrise. I'm gonna get breakfast finished up, pack up camp, and it'll be time to hit the trail. "14 miles to go." It's a bright, sunshiny day. Here we are looking south at the top of Sassafras Mountain, the highest point in South Carolina. An absolutely beautiful day. There's west. Continue around. Now we're looking north into North Carolina. And there we are out to the east. Heading down from Sassafras Mountain, hiking with my new buddy Scott. He is also through hiking the Foothills Trail. You can see he's not wearing any shoes. And he's a good guy to chat with, and I appreciate his company, especially coming up the mountain. Made it a lot easier on that hike having someone to talk to. This is the Cantrell campsite and the remains of the old homestead. Beautiful campsite here. The water source is a little more than a trickle down there. But the campsite does have this very cool feature of what Scott called the round table around the fire ring here with all these stone seats. That's pretty interesting. We've made it to the Lighthouse campsite at the base of these big boulders up here. A really unique spot. Home sweet home. We found camp for the night just a bit before the Lighthouse campsite. A beautiful spot out here in the woods, and it's time to get settled in for a relaxing evening. Let's take a look at the map for day 6. Started at my campsite 59.9, followed the Foothills Trail down for a bit, and then began to climb Sassafras Mountain. Along the way I met Scott. We enjoyed a beautiful view from the top of Sassafras and continued along on our day before setting up camp approximately 71.3, just a bit before the Lighthouse Cave campsite. Day 6 was about 12 miles. Day 6 has been another great day. Solid hiking, The view from Sassafras Mountain was incredible, but the real highlights of today were the cool people that I got to meet along the way. From Alex and Kate, who were through hiking in the opposite direction, to Bill and Robbie, who we had a great conversation with on the top of Sassafras, to Dusty and Hiking with Braids, who are out doing the Foothills Trail plus a little more, and then of course my buddy Scott, who we met earlier today and really helped make the hiking a lot easier to have someone to chat with. And we're set up here tonight. This is the last night of the thru hike for both of us. Beautiful campsite. I'm gonna get some dinner in me, and that'll be the end of day 6. Good night. A decade ago, Sassafras Mountain looked very different. The summit was cleared of trees in the mid-2010s, and the observation deck was built in 2019. Good morning. Made it to day 7, the final day of the backpacking trip here along the Foothills Trail. Scott and I had a great camp last night, good companionship. We had a great evening hanging out and enjoying the beautiful view from our campsite. Same thing that we're doing here this morning. If you've ever wanted to see what 7 days of trash looks like, right here. If you pack it in, pack it out, it's that simple. Most of my trips are in the 3 to 4 day range, and when I have an opportunity to immerse myself for like this for a week long, it's great. I really enjoy it. It's an entirely different kind of feeling altogether. It's an entirely different kind of feeling. We're gonna finish getting breakfast in us, get camp packed up, and then I'll be ready to finish off the 5 miles of trail to Table Rock State Park and the end of the Foothills Trail thru hike. Oh yeah, there's a 4th one out. Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if we can see. Looks like we are 4 miles from finishing off our 77-mile trip. This is our view from Bald Knob, descending towards Table Rock State Park. Less than 1 mile to go. Enjoying our last few moments of this incredible adventure on the beautiful end to the Foothills Trail. Woo! Finished up. What can I say that hasn't already been said? Well, the one thing is the R word, which I've avoided this entire trip, but just went 7 days in the Carolinas in the springtime with not a drop of rain. That is a true gift. Incredible adventure, beautiful trail, great times, awesome people. It's time to go home, get some real food, take a shower, and dream of the awesome thru hike that I just had along the Foothills Trail. It's been a couple days now since I last whined about not having my trekking poles or my camp shoes, so I'll leave you with the old backpacking adage: if you need something and you don't have it, then you don't need it. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to Layne's World. Goodbye.
Let's take a look at the map for day 7. We started at our campsite just before Lighthouse Cave, summited Pinnacle Mountain, and then descended to Table Rock State Park. On the map, and this is about 5 miles, we ended up doing 7 miles. Felt like we were always on the Foothills Trail, but maybe around the summit of Pinnacle we did something a little extra, and that gave a trip total, including the spur trails, of approximately 80 miles.